Hello, everyone. Good afternoon. I hope you guys are doing well today. I hope that you are either eating your lunch, that you either ate your lunch, or you're on your way to get some lunch because lunch is very important. It's important to take out time in the day to make sure that you are doing what you need to do. I try to eat my breakfast. I normally eat something very light for breakfast. I normally have some type of tea. Sometimes I make the tea in my house. Sometimes I go out and get my tea. And actually, I'm about to make some tea right now while I'm talking to you guys. So give me 1 second. Well, y'all had to give me a second. I just need y'all. I just gotta have you guys walk with me. Um, I'm trying to drink all my water, you guys, so that I can hopefully this daggone kidney stone can be gone by the time I need to um have this imaging done next week so that I don't have to have this procedure done. I just don't feel like it, y'all. I don't feel like having to get um anesthesia. I think that's the biggest part for me is that I hate anesthesia. Hey, purple, how you doing, boo boo? I don't like having to get anesthesia. And mainly because, like I said, I have to go through all of this. I have to go through all of this crap in order to get anesthesia. So I'm kind of hoping that I don't have to get it done and that this kidney stone can pass. So I'm increasing the amount of water that I'm drinking even more than I was before. But I'm about to make me some tea while I talk to you guys too. Because I did not have my tea this morning, but I normally do have my tea in the morning, and I normally have something very light for breakfast, like an egg and maybe some bacon or something like that in a wrap, and then I'll have my lunch. So today for lunch, I had a salad from Sweet Green. I don't know if you all have that near you guys, but they have excellent salads. So when you don't feel like chopping up a salad yourself at home and you want to just get something that's already done, um, Sweet Greens is a good place to get a salad from. So I got a salad from them and I ate some of that for my lunch. And I still have some left over. I'm not sure if I'm gonna have that for dinner or if I'm gonna have something additional plus that for dinner, or if I'll leave that later on for a snack. Because sometimes instead of me having something sweet or salty for a snack, I'll eat vegetables or something like that. So I still have some salad left over, and I think I'm gonna have something different for dinner, but that's also an option too. So while I'm waiting for the my water to get hot in order to make my tea, I wanted to talk to you guys about the Duggars today. This is a Duggar update, right? The Duggar family update. This is the 19 Kids and Counting show that was on TLC. I have done several videos talking about what's new happening in the family because there was some old legal business with the family dealing with the son Josh Duggar, right? So I'm going to start off with giving a Josh Duggar update because there was some movement in the Josh Duggar case yesterday. So as you all know, and I've said this before, Josh Duggar is in the process of filing an appeal, and he has retained Bo Brinley, who we also know is R. Kelly's new attorney for his appeal in Chicago. He has retained him as his counsel. And so yesterday, Josh appeared, I think it was a Zoom call or some type of virtual appearance that had to happen in relation to his appeal. So a lot of the time in yesterday was used to discuss the paperwork, right? And I thought this was very interesting. One plus I have to give to them in this case is that they did show up for the hearing. So far, we are seeing delays in the RSK hearing that was scheduled, the in-person hearing that was scheduled. It has now been rescheduled to April the 22nd. It was first supposed to happen last week, then the 17th this week, and now it's been pushed to the 22nd of April. So I think that's next Thursday or Wednesday or Thursday or something like that. I don't know. We'll see. You all know I made a prediction that I felt like this is going to keep getting moved out and keep getting moved out. And so far looks like that's what's happening. Um, but Bo Brinley did appear yesterday, whether it was virtual or in court. I think it was virtual. They had to appear. They did appear, but most of the conversation in the hearing yesterday was surrounding whether or not Josh Duggar met the deadline in order to file the motion for the appeal request. So the controversy behind that, now this doesn't have anything necessarily to do with Bo Brinley, because from my understanding, at the time that this paperwork needed to be submitted, the deadline that he had, Bo Brinley was not retained as his attorney at that time. And this is at least what I'm taking from it, because, and the reason I'm taking this from it is because it's being reported and documented through reports. When I'm saying reported, that means that I've heard several content creators report it, in addition to that I've read online myself, right? So it's being reported that Josh mailed this paperwork in himself. So I don't know. He was supposed to have had the paperwork into the courts by June. I think it was like June 24th or something like that of 2025. And apparently that didn't happen. Apparently this reached the court after that date. And so from my understanding, I don't think Bo Brinley was retained as his attorney at that time. And I don't think Bo Brinley was the one who was responsible, because so the excuse is that the paper came from the jail and that they have no control over how the jail mail goes out. The prosecutors gave an argument that, most defendants and their counsel are aware that when they are sending something that is time sensitive to the court, such as appeal documents, paperwork, motions for appeal, whatever, that they should use the certified process in the jail for this reason. Because even if it reaches the court late, there will be some kind of receipt that it was sent prior to the deadline, right? So it makes it look even crazier, the fact that this paperwork never reached the court. And I don't know if then this is when Bo Brinley attempted to send new paperwork in this motion or whatever, once they retained him or not. But most of yesterday was having conversations between the prosecution and the defense attorneys about this paperwork not meeting the deadline. And like I said, the paperwork, according to what was documented, it was not delayed because of Bo Brinley. And I'm saying that because we know that he has an issue getting paperwork in on time, right? But in this instance, I don't think that the initial filing not getting there on time was his fault, because it was sent directly from the prison. So at the time, I think that Josh Duggar was sending that in himself to meet the deadline. Or he claims that he did. And he claims that he sent this through the regular jail mail. And so this is the dispute between the prosecutors and between the defense team about whether or not this motion even met the deadline. And so the judge did not make any rulings or determinations yesterday. We will, once I am aware of any kind of update in relation to that, I will come back to talk to you guys about it. But they are waiting for the judge to determine if this paperwork met the deadline, or, well, they know it didn't meet the deadline, but to determine whether or not they are going to actually move forward. Basically, they're trying to determine if they are even going to move forward with the motion, because if he did not meet the deadline, it's going to be automatically denied by the judge. So right now it's in review with the judge to determine if this case even moves forward. But some of the things that being alleged in the motion are very much similar along the lines that we see in the RSK paperwork, not in action, but just in the way that it's the structure, right? So they alleged that there was something going on with some of the prosecutors' witnesses, the prosecution team's witnesses, and some untruthfulness that was told. The fact that some evidence wasn't allowed to be admitted into evidence that demonstrated that there was someone else who was at the car dealership who had all of Josh's password information, that they are basically saying that this person could have done it. And I honestly, if I'm not mistaken, I believe that the person that they are saying is another brother. So this still wouldn't be good for the Duggar family. But I think the person, or at least one of the individuals who I know, when they were trying to throw some clouds on this situation, his brother had access to this dealership too. I don't think it was Joseph, but it was one of his other brothers. So it might have been a friend too, but I know for sure that one of the brothers was also at the dealership. So the accusations is that this evidence was suppressed, and he wasn't allowed to present that evidence because it was deemed to be inadmissible. And so these are just some of the things. But like I said, some of the same kind of tactics, right? That there was untruthfulness by the government witnesses, right? And expert witnesses at that, right? And how, and making allegations that they did something to doctor the documents that then favored their narrative of the story. And when I say their narrative, I mean the government's narrative of the story. So this is kind of like the same kind of shit we're seeing in the R. Kelly motions, right? It's all of what the government did wrong to get this outcome, right? So, but like I said, that wasn't even allowed to be discussed yesterday because they had the issue of whether this motion even made it in time to meet the deadline. And so as a result, we are waiting for a determination from the appeals court to determine what happens next. Will Josh get a reduction in sentencing? Will the sentence be overturned? Will he get a new trial? We don't know yet because we have to see if they are even going to accept the motion coming in late to move forward with a hearing, right? So that is the status of the situation with Josh Duggar and his attorney, Bo Brindley, who's representing him. Who showed up for him yesterday? Like I said, I'm not sure if it was virtual. I'm not sure if it was in person. I'm inclined that I think it was virtual because I think what I saw documented that it was a virtual hearing. So that's the update with the Josh Duggar situation. I want to move now to an update on the Joseph Duggar situation. So we know that Joseph Duggar is the seventh child of the Duggars. He is the third oldest son. Josh is the oldest son. Joseph is the third oldest son. And he has been accused in Panama City. He has charges and was arrested for inappropriate contact with a 9-year-old at the time. Inappropriate sexual contact with a 9-year-old, right? And they also got charges in Arkansas. There's just a brief update in Arkansas, him and his wife, for child endangerment and false imprisonment. They got 4 counts each of them. And what is reported is that we know for sure there are some other reports of some things going in the house, but they were not confirmed. But what has been confirmed that may have led to these charges is that they had locks on the outside of at least 2 rooms in their home. And so that's certainly enough in order to get them all of those charges. But some of the people claimed it was some more things that were found when they were at the home. I don't know if that's true or not. I know that having locks on the outside of the door could get you child endangerment and definitely have the false imprisonment. That's obvious, right? And so those CPS came in when they went to go arrest based on the allegations made against Joseph Duggar about the sexual assault. And this is what I guess led them to these findings with the children in the home. And so the children were removed out of the home and they were charged with this and booked. And so now there is some more drama because we know that things don't just you don't just wait for someone to go to court. That's not where the story ends. Anyone in the true crime community we know that the story doesn't end with now we wait for the outcome of the trial. There's always a whole bunch of in between that happens, right? And so there are lots of content creators who got a hold of the jail calls. Jail calls. Kendra wasn't in jail for very long. She was held for a few hours, and then she was released on a bail. However, Joseph was held much longer because he was arrested on the charges in Arkansas. They had to hold him there in order to extradite him to Florida. And then when he got to Florida, he had to await before he could go before the judge and be determined if he would be given a bail. So now Joseph is out on bail. His father, Jim Bob Duggar, posted the bond. He had a $600,000 bond that needed to be satisfied, and they did what they needed to do in order to post for that. And so he is now out of jail, but there are several content creators who got a hold of the jail calls and communications through a FOIA request. So this is perfectly legal. Through a FOIA request, and they released these calls. And so in these calls, Kendra is talking to her husband, Joseph Duggar. Now, a couple of days ago, I did a live because, I have not been saying who they are alleging the victim is because I just didn't want to say it. There were some content creators who were mentioning who they thought it was, but I didn't want to say it at the time because it's a child. She's still a child. She was 9 at the time of the offense. She's 14 years old now. And I didn't want to say that. But because of what's happening now, it's kind of like everybody's going to know anyway. And then the family kind of spoke out. And the way that they spoke out, they did not speak out in a way that revealed what child it was. But if you look at their family makeup, which is very public, you will be able to know which child it is. But the Kendra's parents came out and spoke recently. They finally made a statement. And that it is alleged that the victim of Joseph is Kendra's sister. So it would be Joseph's sister-in-law. So Kendra's parents would be his in-laws. And it was stated that it was the father of the victim who reported Joseph to the authorities, that he was the one who got the confession and he's the one who reported it. And it was a recorded confession, right? So with that being said, if it is Kendra Duggar's younger sister, then Kendra Duggar's father would have been the one responsible for turning in his son-in-law, right? And so there was a phone call that happened where Kendra Duggar is talking to Joseph Duggar, and she is making statements about the fact that her parents are currently saying that they are going to be out of the house within a month, right? And that there are people who are going to make sure that they stick to that deadline. And conversation is happening over the phone that she is having with her husband, Joseph Duggar. Joseph is incarcerated. She has been bailed out. And they are having a phone call about this. Well, the controversy behind this is that, okay, so I have to go back a little bit to lay just a little bit of foundation. The Cardwells, who are Kendra's parents, Paul and Christina, they originally Paul, the father, was pastoring a church in Virginia, in Woodbridge, Virginia, right? And that's where he started his ministry. But he got close connections with the Duggars, and when he gained those connections with the Duggars, he then went to go found and start and pastor a church called Lighthouse Baptist Church, Lighthouse Baptist Church. And the Duggars were attendees of this church. And as a result of them being attendees of this church, they had a lot of influence on what happened inside of this church, they were the ones who gifted the Caldwells with the parsonage in order for them to pastor this church. And so everything was all good until COVID hit, right? And when COVID hit, it was something else going on, not just COVID. But the case with Josh Duggar, their own oldest son, was unfolding at the same time. And there is publicly said that the Duggars had a dispute with the Caldwells over their COVID restrictions. But many of the people inside believe that the real dispute that they had with the Caldwells was the Caldwell's position on Josh Duggar and what he had done and how he's publicly and vocally spoke out about it. And as a result, it ended with them being put out of the parsonage, right? So now they are no longer living on the property that was gifted to them by the Duggars to live. So they move into this house now that we're discussing that was intended for Kendra and Joseph Duggar to move into when they got married. They were already married, and I think their first baby was coming or something. And so they moved in, the Caldwells moved into that house. The Caldwells had a baby at the same time too. So the Caldwells have a total of 9 children, right? So Kendra is the oldest one. So they moved into this house. So the house that now is being discussed that they're moving out of is a house that we are to assume is owned by Joseph and Kendra Duggar. And so now they are being required to move out of the home. And they were given a month to move out of the home. Now, I know there's a lot of people, even me, I was like, well, they should have known that that was coming, right? I feel like that. Like, you know that you are going after your son-in-law for what he did to your daughter. You know you live in a property that they occupy. You should have assumed that that was coming next. That now they want you out of their property, right? I'm not saying it's the right thing to do. What I'm saying is that it should have been assumed that that's what was going to happen. So there should have already been some kind of provisions made and arrangements made to do that. And I don't know, maybe the Caldwells were already making those provisions and arrangements to do that, right? But there had been a lot of talk about the Caldwells having a lot of financial difficulties. And some people blame the financial difficulties on the Caldwells, but then some people believe that the financial difficulty that the Caldwells are in is because of what the Duggars have done to try to isolate them. So Paul is the pastor. Of course, he gets paid being the pastor. So when the whole fallout happened over the COVID or Josh Duggar, whichever one it was, it caused some fall in the membership of the church because they say that the Duggars had lots of influence on a lot of the members in the church. And so because the membership diminished, then this impacted his salary. Paul Caldwell was also a mechanic. They said that business was also impacted by his position as well. So this is why now you might be able to understand why some people are saying, listen, the Caldwells, they should have been better prepared. But some people believe that the Duggars, the impact of their influence is what ended up having the Caldwells in this financial situation that they're in. Not to mention that I think several of their other children worked alongside the Duggars. So they have 3 other adult children outside of Kendra. And then I think it's 5 underage children in the house, right? The youngest one being 4 years old. So they, like I said, it's a toss-up. You have a mix of people. And like I said, and the thing that I like about the true crime community over in that side is that most of the people have a independent thinking, regardless of their position, whether they support the Duggars, whether they don't support the Duggars. All the people don't agree on all of the things, and they are not going to band to agree on all of the things just to try to make it look like it's some kind of united front or something. They're going to call out the BS, right? And so over on that side of the fence, they are more honest about what it is that they see. So there are some people who are supporters of the victims of the Duggars, right? But they still find fault that the Caldwells did not make the proper arrangements necessary to provide for their family outside of the Duggars. And then you have some people who um, who don't agree with that. They believe that the Duggars created this financial strain for the Caldwells, right? So I am not decided on it yet, right? Because I don't even think we have enough information about the situation to even know whether to come to that determination at this point. I know what it looks like, and that's what I came to talk to you guys about today, is what it looks like. Because now that that jail call has been released, stating about the family being put out, some other things have transpired. So it's almost been a month since Joseph Duggar was initially arrested. So the month for the Caldwells to be out of the home is almost up. Well, last week, while the Caldwells are preparing to move out of the home, CPS shows up at the Caldwells' house. A day or two prior to CPS showing up, the gas, electric, and water was turned off in the home. Now, I'm assuming that because it was turned off, it must have been under Joseph and Kendra Duggar's name or something for them to be able to turn it off. But they turned off the gas, electric, and water. And then this call was made to CPS. And it was all of these allegations that the social workers were given about child endangerment and all of these things on the Caldwells. And when this happened, when CPS showed up, because this story, it gets more complex. This is interesting, y'all. I tell you, this is drama, but it's a little more organized, right? But when CPS showed up, a friend of the family was there helping them pack. Because, like I said, the gas and electric and water got turned off a couple of days prior to CPS showing up. So when that happened, I think that accelerated the Caldwell's attempt to get out of the home. So some people showed up to help them to pack up. And one of the individuals who showed up to help them pack up was a woman by the name of Amy Paul. Now, in one of my previous lives, y'all have heard me talk about what motivated Joseph Duggar's victim to come forward about what happened to her. And this woman, Amy Paul, is connected to that. The reason that Amy Paul is connected to that is because, remember I was talking to you guys about Amy Duggar, the Amy Duggar King, the Duggar cousin? Well, she was mentoring Amy Paul's daughter. And Amy Paul's daughter, I told this to you guys before, had confided in Amy Duggar King, who is the cousin to the Duggars, that she had been violated by her brother-in-law. And his name is Carver Bowers. Carver is a friend with Joseph Duggar, right? And so Amy Duggar King helped Amy Paul's daughter go to her parents to tell her parents what happened. And when they did that, the daughter of Amy Paul's parents, they went to the police, and Carver was arrested. Their son-in-law was arrested. All of these people are all friends. So when Joseph Duggar's victim saw that something happened as a result of them going to the authorities and them going to the parents and going to the authorities, this is what gave her the courage to go tell her parents. So this is the connection. So Amy Paul shows up at the Caldwell home that they are living in. That's Joseph and Kendra's home. And she's helping them to pack, right? Amy Paul is no longer friends with the Duggars. They are awaiting the outcomes with their own son-in-law about the allegations against him. And she went there to go help them. Well, CPS shows up while she's there. And Amy Paul is livid. And she goes live. And she is blasting the Duggars because they find out that what the CPS worker, they cannot say who called them. But the CPS workers and offices have a way of knowing who called them because apparently they cannot make an anonymous complaint anymore. So where they live. So they have to document who it is. Well, it was confirmed that Amy Paul is still there. She was there when CPS showed up. And then I don't know if the worker got back in touch with the Caldwells while Amy Paul was still there helping them pack. But it was confirmed that that call was made to CPS as some form of retaliation. So almost saying either the Duggars contacted CPS and made this report on the Caldwells after the water and gas and electric was turned off, or that somebody close to the Duggars. But CPS determined that this was a retaliatory call, right? And so Amy Paul went live and she was pissed off and going off on the Duggars. And so this is how we kind of now know the victim is Kendra Duggar's sister. Now, there also is another possibility. We strongly believe that it's Kendra Duggar's sister is the victim, but it could have been a member. It could have been a church member. And then the Caldwells could have sided with the church member. But it's highly favorable that the victim is the Caldwell's daughter, who is Kendra Duggar's sister. And so I came to talk to you guys about this. This is the reason I came to mention this, and I want to know what you guys think about it. I don't understand what these people are thinking when they are on these jail calls and then the things that they say. Because I don't know if they realize that this evidence can be turned over to the prosecutor. I mean, the prosecutors have access to these calls too. They may have already heard it, listened to it. But even if they didn't, now that it is on social media and all of the impact of this is now playing out on social media by people coming forward and speaking, because the Caldwells issued a statement. I think it was late yesterday evening. Now, it's their first statement since all of this has happened. But now that this is public, so now somebody might see it. Somebody might have already sent it over to the prosecutors. I'm sure they're already listening into the calls anyway, so they may have already heard it. But now that all of this is being shown, this can potentially impact and hurt the ability to get a reduction on the behalf of Joseph for the charges. Because remember when I was saying, because they have the recorded confession, from him, I think it's two of them, two recorded confessions. People in the true crime community are up in arms about the fact that he pleaded not guilty. But we talked about that, right? We were like, okay, I'm thinking this is a tactic of his defense team. They are going to try to work something out with the prosecutor's office. in order to get in order uh to what is it called? I can't think of the word when it's called, when they reduce the charges, right? So like to bring the charges down some, because the one charge that he is facing right now can get him a life sentence in prison. So it's my belief that his legal team is attempting to get that charge reduced, got down to something else that wouldn't carry so much jail time, and try to come to some type of deal with the prosecutor's office. But based on some of the conversations that have been released, the retaliatory tactics that have been displayed against the victim and the family, there was some conversation about firing Kendra's younger brother from the job that he has that is somehow connected to the Duggar family. All of these things can impact what that prosecutor's office will be willing to do and what that judge will be willing to do in the event that something can be negotiated. And I don't like, it's crazy to me when people do things like this. They don't realize that the very behaviors that they're being accused of doing, they display them when they are placed under pressure. And this is what impacts the sentencing in the end. This is what impacts the willingness of the prosecutor's office to come with a deal or to reduce the charges or come with a lower sentence recommendation. All of this stuff impacts that. What is done after you are accused of a crime is important. And now that they have all of these calls, which, like I said, the prosecutor's office probably already got these calls. They probably already heard it. But now that all of this stuff is playing out on social media, bringing much more light to what is happening, this is something that can impact how the prosecutors decide to move forward in this case. And it can have a negative impact on their client, on their son. I know that sometimes, like, people have this feeling of, well, if somebody does something to my family, they should expect that this is what's going to happen. But do you realize how these movements now, what it makes it look like? That's my concern. Even if you feel like that the Caldwells should get out of their home if they're accusing them of something, which I don't agree with that. Because if he did it and he admitted to doing it, why are they being punished for what he admitted to doing? Like, he needs to deal with the consequence and not further victimize the victim and then the family. But that is what he's doing. They were fine with the Caldwells being in the home as long as this didn't become discovered, as long as this didn't come out. But now that it's come out, now they want them out. Well, this looks like some form of retaliation. And I don't think that anyone on that side is thinking how this can end up impacting the outcome for their son, for their brother, for the husband. Like, I don't think anybody is thinking about that. Threatening to fire Kendra's younger brother, all of that can be looked at as retaliation. The CPS call, all of that is retaliation. And how do you think that is going to play out when you go to the prosecutors trying to negotiate something and they are seeing what you are still doing to victimize your victim? Like, what happens after you are accused of a crime matters. It matters and can impact the outcome of your situation. So I wanted to come and talk to you guys about that, because I'm like, this is, I think that if I give my honest opinion, right? I think that Joseph Duggar, prior to all of this stuff going on, might have been in a good position to negotiate something where the charges could be knocked down to a lesser charge or something, and he can plead guilty to something lesser, right? But now with this stuff happening, I don't know how the prosecutors over there in Panama City are going to respond to this that they're seeing happen. Because it's like, where is your remorse? Where is your apology to this family? Where is your conscience that you did something wrong, that you think that now you can still continue to do things that are going to further traumatize and displace this family in the midst of this situation? Like I said, a lot of people have a lot of different opinions about it, and all of those opinions are respected, and I can see the angle, but I am more so also trying to consider the outcome for the defendant in the case, Joseph Duggar. Like, what are you doing? What is it that you're doing, your family is doing, in order to try to retaliate against this family in the midst of this legal situation? To me, it just doesn't make sense. And a lot of people can make a hard line and say, oh, well, it's their right, it's their property, it's this, and yeah, all of that is true. But what is more important at this point? Is it more important that he get charged with something that is deemed more appropriate for what was done, and then possibly not do as much time and learn the lesson to not do this ever again? Or is it your get back? Which is more important? This is not good for that victim and her family, and it is no good for the defendant either. And what, through those calls, what these prosecutors might look at and see, the isolation attempts of Kendra, who is a grown woman who can make her own decisions, but they can take a look at the isolation tactics that the Duggars are implementing on her by love bombing her in this situation. And that can be looked at and unfavorable in the behalf of her husband getting in it and being in this situation. Like, people are perfectly right when they say she has every right to stay with her husband. They are wrong. She does have every right. But the prosecutors and a judge have a right to weigh where that is coming from. And doing things, supporting things that isolate her from her family after a wrong was done to someone in her family is something that those prosecutors and something that that judge will consider in the end. So I know people feel so entitled that they have so much rights to do things how they want to do it, and they have a right to respond to things the way that they want to, but it's also other consequences sometimes that come with that response. And I just don't see this playing out well. I don't. We don't know what might come out more down the line. But right now, with what we are seeing, that is enough for the prosecutors to take a look at and say, they haven't learned nothing. They think they're above the law. They think that it's perfectly okay for them to continue to do things that will traumatize these victims. And that could shut off any negotiation for anything lesser with the prosecutor's office. That could shut off any opinion that once this information is passed on to a judge during sentencing to give you a lighter sentence. All of these things impact that. I don't know. I don't know. I was wondering what you guys think about it. I wanted to give you an update on the latest shenanigans. It is blowing up over there in Duggar world because it's a lot of movement. It's a lot more people come forward. The Caldwells have made a statement, and in their statement, they have made a public call to encourage more victims to come forward, if there are any. So we will see. As soon as I have anything additional about this, I will come back and talk to you guys. But I hope you all enjoy the rest of your day. You can leave your questions, comments, concerns, suggestions in the comment section of this video, and I will respond. I thank you all for coming in and listening to this live today, and y'all have a blessed day.